Birth, aging, illness, and death are all part of the life cycle. The dead themselves aren't scary, but the dead rising from the grave can make us pee our pants. Take, for example, this murderer, who just emerged from the ground and immediately went on a killing spree. Standing by the lake, he quietly observed two young girls before using an axe to hack into a tree. With the iron hook in hand, he slowly went into the lake until he sank. Moments later, he grabbed a girl, pulling her down until her lifeless body floated to the surface. He then goes ashore, looking for his next victim, who will meet an even more terrible fate. Cornered at the edge of the valley, she had no way to escape and met a cruel end at the hands of the butcher. So who is the killer, and what the hell is going on in this forest? Join us to learn about the movie today. A group of young men and women discovered a bracelet hanging on the ruins of the fire tower. One of them pocketed it. Just then, a metal pipe is pushed out of the ground, revealing a hand and Johnny's reanimated corpse. He walked out of an abandoned house and wandered into the woods. On the way, he passed by the decomposing body of a fox, with ribbons tied around nearby trees, as if to mark the path. Johnny follows the ribbon to a house where he hears two men arguing. Curious, Johnny slowly walked across the lawn, approaching the house on the side of the road. The argument ended, and a man drove away, unaware of Johnny's presence. Johnny entered the house just as the other man took a gun and went out hunting. The dining room was a mess, but Johnny didn't pay attention and continued to look around. Seeing the bracelet, he mistakes it for his own pendant, which brings back memories of his father. His father gave Johnny his mother's necklace and told him to always keep it safe. At that moment, the homeowner returned, panicked when he saw Johnny, and ran away. Johnny grabbed the gun but did not shoot, but dropped it on the ground. He calmly followed his goal without haste. Suddenly, a painful scream rang out. The homeowner fell into his own trap. Desperate, he begged for mercy, but Johnny remained silent, raising his large hand to finish him off. Johnny then returns to the house, takes the necklace, realizes it is not his, and leaves. Nearing the main road, he spotted a group of young men riding motorbikes speeding past. Johnny followed them to the campfire. The whole group was still laughing and chatting, not knowing that death was behind them. Aaron begins to tell them Johnny's strange story. Johnny was originally a slow boy, the son of a merchant who ran expensive stores, making him unpopular with the townspeople. They often vent their anger on Johnny. The worst prank led Johnny to a fire watchtower, where he climbed to the top, expecting toys, but was instead scared by a masked old man. Johnny fell from the tower and died. The scene was then staged to look like an accident. Johnny's father notices something unusual and confronts the culprit, leading to a deadly battle in which he also loses his life. This is just the beginning of the tragedy. A week later, the group of perpetrators were brutally murdered. Police could not find the cause and blamed wild animals. Decades later, similar murders continue to occur, rumored to be the vengeful spirit of Johnny. When Aaron finished telling the story, the group laughed because they thought it was a fabrication. They took a few photos, extinguished the fire with leftover beer, and entered the abandoned house. Johnny walked around the yard like a ghost, picked up a saw from the wall, and kept moving. He looked at the three people chatting on the porch. When one of them went out, Johnny followed silently. The guy leaned against the tree, listening to music without knowing Johnny was approaching. Johnny quickly uses a chainsaw to kill him. Blood splattered on his shirt. Johnny didn't stop until the saw got stuck in the tree. After the victim fell, Johnny checked the heartbeat, but the head was gone, so he couldn't hear the heartbeat. He dragged the body to the ranger's room, used the victim's head to break the glass door, and threw the body inside. Surveying the area, Johnny decides to grab some tools, smashing a glass case with the body and taking an old firefighter's mask. He came out with an axe and an iron hook, his terrifying figure illuminated by the lights. Following the trail into the forest, he saw two young girls playing by the lake at dawn. Brody strips down to swim while Aurora enjoys yoga. Johnny hit a tree with his axe, and with the hook in his hand, he silently sank. The two girls were unaware. Brody freely swam, and Aurora went looking for a place to practice yoga. Johnny appears next to Brody, who screams in horror before disappearing. She struggled, but soon her lifeless body surfaced. Johnny went ashore, took the iron hook, and walked into the forest. Aurora hears footsteps and thinks it's Brody, but turns around and sees Johnny and panics. She tried to run away, but was faced with a cliff, and Johnny stabbed her with a hook. When she turned around to look at her killer, Johnny angrily hit her on the head with a hook, pulling until her body was deformed. After committing the crime, Johnny took back his weapon, threw Aurora's body into the ravine, and left. The sound of his spiked boots stepping on the hard ground was chilling. Arriving at the lake, Johnny picked up his axe. The search for the necklace continued. After walking a little further, Johnny heard people arguing. Colt realized their friends were missing and wanted to report it, but Troy didn't agree. During the argument, Troy threw the keys and fell near Johnny. Curious, Johnny picked them up and hid behind a tree, playing with the car-shaped keychain. When Troy approaches and finds the axe, he panics, seeing it as evidence of something wrong. Someone started the car, and the noise annoyed Johnny. He crushed the keychain, put on a mask, and used the hook to approach the arguing group. But they dispersed. Johnny stuffed the tree branch into the car horn, making a loud noise, then rushed into the house. Retrieving his axe, he suddenly attacked Troy, who narrowly escaped death but was seriously injured. Evan shows up with a gun and shoots Johnny, who collapses. Evan used his shirt to bandage Troy's wound and then helped him out. As they leave, Johnny stands up, quickly catches up, and kills Evan. Roy, injured and unable to escape, was beaten to death by Johnny with a large rock. After executing Johnny, he searched the victim's pockets but could not find the necklace. He then grabbed his hook and battle axe and approached the pair that had just arrived. Noticing the necklace around the girl's neck, Johnny gripped the axe and threw it straight at his target. Fortunately, Colt discovered it in time and shouted a warning. Chris narrowly escaped death and climbed into the car to urge Colt to drive out of the forest. Johnny didn't give chase, but took the axe and took a shortcut to the ranger station. The couple Chris and Colt were there. The park ranger explains that the necklace Chris is wearing is the key to putting Johnny's soul to rest. While they were discussing a solution, Johnny appeared. The ranger tried to talk to him, but Johnny was completely silent. He used a fishing hook to approach, forcing the ranger to open fire. Knowing this would only temporarily hinder Johnny, the ranger urged Colt to retrieve the chain from the barn. They tried to tie Johnny up, but he suddenly woke up and grabbed the gun. The ranger tried to resist, but Johnny was too strong, crushing the ranger's hand, making him writhe in pain. Johnny comes close, tearing the ranger's spine, leaving him paralyzed but still alive. He then dragged the ranger to the sawmill where the machine was running and placed him on the ground, splitting a log as if foretelling the ranger's fate. Johnny then dismembered the ranger's body and took the axe back to the forest. Suddenly, he heard Colt's teasing call. Johnny follows the sound, and Colt, holding Chris's hand, leads her behind a bush, hoping to distract the killer and buy Chris time to set a trap at the old fire station. But Colt made the mistake of getting too close. As soon as he spoke, Johnny held an axe and chopped him in the head. Chris was horrified and silently watched as Johnny continued to attack. Giving up the idea of setting a trap, Chris took off the necklace around his neck and hung it on the gas tank before backing away and running away. Exhausted and scared, she tripped and fell unconscious after a tree branch stabbed her leg. The next morning, Chris painfully pulled out the branch and limped out of the forest. Finally reaching the main road, she flagged down a car. The driver, a woman, tried to ask questions, but Chris panicked and urged her to drive quickly. On the way to the hospital, the woman recounted a massacre that happened 30 years ago, which police said was caused by a bear. But Chris knows this is wrong. The bears grow old and die, but Johnny is still there. Whoever wakes him up will face terrible consequences. Where Chris left the necklace, it has disappeared, possibly taken by Johnny. Whether he finds peace or not is unknown, and it is a scene that marks the final scene of the film. That's all for today. See you in the next video, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks, everyone.